What is up, you guys? It is Geography Joe coming at you today with another video about my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. Today we are going to be talking about the west side suburbs of Cleveland. And before we start, I just wanted to say that Cleveland is a city that has either stagnated in population or been declining in population for about the last 70 years. The population continuously leaves the city and moves out into the suburbs more and more and more. And as more of these suburbs get built out and incorporated, it all comes back into the center. So we have this incredibly inefficient situation here in Cleveland where we have 59 suburbs in Cuyahoga County, all with their own government system, mayor, police force, all the stuff that a municipality should have. It's just the fact that we don't need to have so many of them, but we do. So I'm going to be talking about the 8 suburbs that I consider to be the west side suburbs. And I'm not including anything in Lorain County. I'm not including anything south of I-480. I'm only including Brooklyn, Lyndale, Bay Village, Westlake, North Olmsted, Lakewood, Rocky River, and Fairview Park. So we're just going to get right into it today with this map and why is the west and south side, like what is the orange? The orange basically means it's south of I-480, but it's west of the Cuyahoga River. So I don't really know what to classify it as. Moving on, though, we're going to close this map out now and minimize this one. This is a map showing the year of incorporation of all of the suburbs and municipalities in Cuyahoga County. If you look on the west side, Lakewood obviously is the one that came first, and then Lyndale, Bay Village, Rocky River, North Olmsted all sort of came about in the same era, and then Westlake and Fairview Park soon followed, whereas Brooklyn was the last to incorporate. If you look at this map of median household income, you can see that the further west of the city you go, the higher the income gets. Bay Village and Westlake being the 2 richest municipalities of Cuyahoga County, west of the river. And Rocky River is a little more upper class. Lakewood is very, very economically diverse. Fairview Park and Brooklyn are very blue collar and middle class. And Lyndale is Lyndale. So, oh boy. Let's just get right into the map now. So we're going to start this video off by talking about Lakewood. Now, Lakewood is where I was born. It is a very interesting town. There is a lot to do in Lakewood. And it's a very walkable city. It's only about 5 square miles, but it has a population of about 51,000, which makes it by far the most densely populated city in the state of Ohio. Its population density is actually comparable to Washington, D.C. So if you've ever been to Washington, D.C., just imagine Lakewood being that, happening, I guess. It is a historical streetcar suburb of Cleveland. Madison, Detroit, and Clifton Avenue are the 3 main streets you're seeing here with all the development along them. When the streetcars were originally built, this is the route that they took, and this even goes into Rocky River to a degree. The only reason it doesn't quite go into River is because they had to build bridges over this. We'll get there. But the thing with Lakewood is that while the majority of the west side of Cleveland is very much overwhelmingly white, Lakewood is the exception to that rule because Lakewood has about 8% of its residents born in another country and 11% of their residents speak a language other than English at home. So another thing with Lakewood is just let's show the population density. Look at this street here. You can see it's just non-stop houses on top of houses. It never ends. Here we have a random apartment building in the middle of the street. And what's funny about these houses is that a lot of them are actually duplexes. For a sec, I thought this was the house I was born in. It looks just like it. But yeah, a lot of the houses are duplexes. So you may drive down the street and be like, wow, this place sure does have a lot of, houses. But then you realize, oh my God, each house is 2 houses. Whoa, there's so many people in Lakewood. And it really is kind of like the downtown for the west side of Cleveland because it's where everything is. It's Lakewood and Cleveland Heights for their respective sides of Cleveland essentially serve the same purpose where it's all shopping. It's a lot of shopping centers, a lot of apartment buildings, walkable, urban feel, but you're in a suburb. You're not in Cleveland. You see me going down the street. There's all these points of interest. I picked a random street, by the way. But anyway, enough about Lakewood, even because I could talk about Lakewood for a while, but we're going to move on to Rocky River. Rocky River is the suburb immediately to the left of Lakewood. And if you look here, this right here, this bridge that I'm going to show you, this bridge at the time of its construction was the largest bridge. What does it say? I have it in my notes. The world's largest unreinforced concrete arch in the world was this bridge right here. And this bridge is the bridge that forms the border between Rocky River and Lakewood. And I think it's really cool that, because Cleveland, back during its heyday, we were home to the richest man in the world, John D. Rockefeller, and we had a lot of other very prominent people in Cleveland. So we have all these cool, like, historical, firsts. For example, like this is the largest bridge at the time of its construction, or Terminal Tower was the second largest building in the world at the time of its construction. These are just historical facts that no matter what happens to the city, never go away. And it's just stuff like that that makes me really like my city. But we're gonna move on. Keep talking about river. Rocky River was formed in 1893, and it was incorporated as a village in 1903. It became a city in 1960. So what does that mean, village to city? Well, in Ohio, if you incorporate as a municipality, you're a village. But if your population is above 5,000, you are automatically a city. There is no exception to this rule. If the population is above 5,000, city. So Rocky River is a relatively affluent suburb, as you can see based on this map. If I look at any street in Rocky River, oh, by the way, with River and Lakewood, it's pretty much a guaranteed rule that the closer you are to the lake, the more, affluent the street will be. See, here's still got a nice little brick road here in Rocky River. But over here is a beach that me and my friends over the summer went to like 3 or 4 times to swim, and it's really nice. This house is sick, by the way. But yeah, Rocky River, there isn't really a whole lot to say about River. It's a pretty run-of-the-mill suburb, just sort of an upper middle class white town. There are hundreds of them across the country. So if you've ever been to one of those, just know that River is the same way, except that it has a bunch of beaches, which makes it cool. We're going to move on because I was talking about firsts earlier. So what we're going to do here is move to Brooklyn, Ohio. Brooklyn. So Brooklyn is the oldest, not the oldest, it's the youngest suburb that we're talking about in this video. It was incorporated in 1927. But what makes Brooklyn really cool isn't Brooklyn itself, it's what's in Brooklyn. If you look at this, there's the Memphis Kiddie Park. It's kind of like an amusement park for like really little kids, and I used to go there when I was younger, and it was so much fun. And even though we lived like 40 minutes away, it was like totally worth the drive. But Brooklyn, if you look at it, there's a lot of industry, and there's not really a lot of houses in the land of Brooklyn. But let's just look at this. See, this is what the average house looks like in Brooklyn. Just small, like blue collar, middle class, average, American life. Just Brooklyn is where it's at. If you just want to live in a simple small house on a quiet street, Brooklyn. But Brooklyn is interesting because it has 4 things that only Brooklyn can say that they have. Number 1, the first concert that Elvis Presley ever did north of the Mason-Dixon line was at Brooklyn High School. Second, their mayor, John M. Coyne, is the longest serving mayor in American history. He was mayor from 1948 until the year I was born, 1999. He was mayor for 51 straight years. And it's just like, that's crazy, isn't it? He was born and raised in Brooklyn. He ran for mayor, and he just decided, I want to be mayor for like the rest of my life. And he democratically won re-election for 50 straight years. That's crazy to me. Like, that says a lot about the community, just a place of tradition. The 2 other things that are cool is that Mayor Coyne actually enacted the first ever seatbelt law anywhere in the world. So Brooklyn was the first place where you legally had to wear a seatbelt if you're driving. And then another first, he made it so that it was the only municipality in the country where using your cell phone while driving was illegal. And it was the first place to make a cell phone law. He made that law in like 2003. And look at us now in 2021, how many people that text and drive. You can't do that in Brooklyn. You'll get pulled over. But moving on, we're going to move straight from Brooklyn into this little guy. This suburb here is called Lyndale. Now, Lyndale is just the worst. Everyone hates Lyndale. Why? Why does everyone hate Lyndale? Because they're a scummy little community. Lyndale has a population of 112 people. 112 people. That's the whole village. But they get their own mayor. They get their own police force. You know what I mean? Lyndale was incorporated in 1902 by a guy named George Lynn. He was trying to capitalize on the fact that like the railroad depot met in that location, and he ran village business out of his apartment. He was just like doing this village business in the 1910s. This right here, like what you're looking at, these like 6 streets, is the entire thing. There's nothing more to it, because they constructed I-71 to go straight through Lyndale. And so Lyndale just has no no room for really anything. There's like a few businesses in the northern end, there's housing on the southern end, but most of the industry has left the city. And the reason Lindale is so bad is because, how do I put this in a simple way that explains the situation? Lindale, at a certain point in the last 5 years, 80% of its revenue was generated by giving traffic tickets. What does that mean? 80% of their money was made through speeding tickets. Lindale is a speed trap. Ohio is littered with speed traps, but Lindale is Cleveland's speed trap, and we all hate it. Everyone has gotten tickets. I haven't, but everyone I know who knows anything about Lindale only does because they've gotten a ticket from there. They have exactly 400 yards of highway within their borders, and they would let cops just hide under the highway. Here, see that? Lindale, Corp limit. So cops would just hide under the highway bridges right there and there. That's where they would go. And if you were going like 61 miles an hour, you would get a ticket. And the thing is, this has been stopped because Governor Kasich, about 5 or 6 years ago, he made a law in which if your population is under 200, you don't have a right to having your own mayor's court anymore. Now, ostensibly, this was just a re-up to the rules of municipalities in Ohio, but in reality, this law was targeted directly at Lindale, and it made it so that Lindale's municipal court no longer has the bandwidth to process traffic tickets. It now has to go to Parma. So Lindale has really next to no incentive on doing speeding tickets. But like, what's crazy about Lindale giving all these tickets underneath the highway is that there isn't an on-ramp or an off-ramp in Lindale. So if you're driving on the highway through Lindale, you're not even really in Lindale. Like they can't even use the argument, we're protecting our community, because your community is above the highway. Your community does not. Even in the 1920s, Lindale was a thorn in everyone's side. It was a notorious gambling district, from what I've read. So Lindale has always just sort of been a municipality that knows it shouldn't exist, but yet still takes full advantage of all the rights given to them. It's kind of like Monaco, except if Monaco was bad. You know what I mean? Like really small, kind of doesn't even make sense that it's there, but it's there, so they take advantage of it. Before I talk about Lindale for another half hour, we're going to move on to Fairview Park. Fairview Park is yet another suburb of Cleveland that is on the west side, as we already know. But what makes Fairview Park a little different is that it is next to Rocky River, Lakewood, and North Olmsted. But Fairview Park remains a very traditionally middle-class suburb, much like Brooklyn, only it is a little teeny little bit richer than Brooklyn. See, Brooklyn's just one bracket beneath Fairview Park, but it's fine. Fairview Park is very middle class, though, and it has an interesting story. You might be wondering, Fairview Park, how did it get that name? Well, originally it was incorporated as Fairview. Let me just make sure I'm right about this. Yes. So it was originally named the village of Fairview, and this southern portion of it down here, like everything south of the mouse, was actually a village called Parkview. So there was Fairview and there was Parkview. In the 1940s and 50s, Fairview slowly but surely annexed Parkview, and in 1948 is when the village was renamed Fairview Park. And now if you go to Fairview Park, you'll see a lot of things called Fair Park, Parkview, View Park, View Fair, Fairview. It's like it's funny. It's just like any combination of those three words, any combo of the two is Fairview Park. And there isn't really a whole lot to say about it, though, other than like its name, because it is it's just a traditional average suburb. If you want to see what a street in Fairview Park looks like, I will pick this one. This is, see, so it's like, you got your ranch housing, you got pretty quiet little off-road streets. Everyone gets a nice front lawn, there are trees. It's a nice place to live. I actually have cousins and aunts and uncles in Fairview Park. I always have. I have a lot of family on the west side, so I kind of have a lot of like personal experience with being in these suburbs, but this is supposed to be an objective, informative video, not a life story of mine. So anyway, the main street on Fairview Park is Lorraine Avenue, and the reason Lorraine Avenue is like kind of curvy like that and goes like southwest instead of, straight line, it's just sort of like runs along, is because there's this geographical feature in this part of the county called the South Ridge. And it generally generated a community around the South Ridge, like on both sides of it. So township lines had to be ignored, and villages were incorporated in certain ways. And if I go to North Olmsted, you can see another example of the South Ridge. You see how North Olmsted is shaped like northeast to southwest. This part of North Olmsted, the part north of this line, actually used to be part of Dover Township, and now it is part of North Olmsted, whereas this little bit of it is part of Westlake today, but it used to be part of Olmsted Township, but then Dover Township annexed it, and then it became Westlake. You see what I'm saying? So the South Ridge had a lot more to do with the development of the cities here than the townships themselves actually did. You'll see this little protrusion. It's a golf course in North Olmsted, of course. But yeah, North Olmsted is a lot like Fairview Park in the fact that it's just a big, pretty diverse community. Whereas Fairview Park is almost entirely middle class, North Olmsted is only mostly middle class, and there's a lot of development in North Olmsted, a lot of shopping centers, strip malls, stuff like that, just your traditional Americana type of place. But yeah, North Olmsted is really a place where you could probably find just about any living style. It's a big, big suburb. But if you're only interested in looking at by the way, before I get to Westlake, North Olmsted's population is about 32,000. It was incorporated in 1908, and what I forgot to mention is that the first municipal bus line in the state of Ohio was enacted in North Olmsted in the year 1931. Pretty cool. So they were progressive in the sense of a city on its own having a bus line. Public transportation has been a big part of North Olmsted's growth, so they figured let's get on top of this and make a muni bus line. Pretty cool. Good job, North Olmsted. Today it's about 94% developed as well. So if you're looking for North Olmsted land to do stuff, well, you got this reservation, but sorry, that's parkland. You can't really develop that. Anyway, we're going to move on to Westlake. Westlake is, before anyone else in the comments says it, yes, Logan and Jake Paul were born and raised in Westlake. That is true. We don't claim them here in Cleveland. Anyway, moving on to talk about Westlake, it has about the same population as North Olmsted does, about 32,000. But Westlake developed a lot later than North Olmsted did. So originally Bay Village. Okay, let me just show you. I'm going to just start with Bay Village. So Bay Village is right here. This is Bay Village, and you may be wondering, why is Bay Village just taking all of Westlake's coastline? Well, Westlake and Bay Village were both part of Dover Township, but in 1903, the northern section of the township incorporated as Bay Village because, summer cottages and lakefront mansions had been being built along the area for a long time. If you go to Bay Village and you go along the lake, you can see what I'm talking about. Along Lake Erie are just really big houses in a general sense. Not all of them are super large, but yeah, do you see how this is the Swiffer mansion in Bay Village? The guy that invented Swiffer built this house a few years ago. I think it's awful. I think it's the worst thing. It's an ugly, ugly house. I don't like it. But the guy who invented Swiffer lives there. Now, there are a lot of smaller houses along Lake Erie, but the thing is that Dover Township split in 1903 because the northern section of the township was developing into this community, Bay Village. And what was the border decided to be? The border is just simply a railroad line. If you look down here, just zoom into the border, there is a railroad track, and that is what makes up the border between the two cities. Bay Village and Westlake, there's only so many streets that even go from city A to city B, if you live here, if you live on this corner, your backyard is in Westlake, but if you want to get your car to Westlake, you have to drive all the way down your street. In fact, I actually have an uncle who lives on that exact street. But moving on, by the way, Bay Village is just gorgeous. I mean, the beaches are awesome. There's so many pretty houses. You're always right by the lake. Whereas with Westlake, it's it's got nice houses, but I don't know. Bay Village, I just like it a lot better. But, as far as Westlake is concerned, it was renamed Westlake in 1940 to avoid confusion with another city in Ohio that was already named Dover, because it used to be Dover Village, and that's confusing. And Westlake is actually the richest municipality to the west of Cleveland. It's richer than Bay Village simply because Bay Village has a lot of very small houses on the inside streets. So I'll show you a street right here. Yeah, so if you look down streets like this, there are a lot of houses that are not very large. like Brooklyn type houses. Looks like they're in Brooklyn. And that's what most of Bay Village is just houses that aren't very big. So the lakeside mansions kind of get watered down by the average of the community. Whereas in Westlake, there are so many subdivisions and so many cul-de-sacs and so many McMansions, by the way, that it's just mostly McMansions that, the median household income ends up being a lot higher. Here's a random street in Westlake to show what I'm talking about. See, let's see if I can find an example by luck. See this? Okay, so this is a more middle-class neighborhood of Westlake. There are a lot of streets in Westlake that actually look more like this. Let's see if it'll let me drag it down. You see, so this is what the majority of Westlake looks like. See, it's got these big houses that were built probably in the last 30 or 40 years. They're not very different looking from each other. They're all pretty similar. This is what I mean when I say McMansions. You see, you got like the nice looking landscaping and the nice looking house, and then you go inside the house and it's kind of just like, I bet the decorations are just like chrome freaking countertops, and I don't like these kinds of houses. I'm not a fan. I understand how some people might like these houses. Good for you. Go buy one and live in Westlake, but not my style, man. Not my style. I mean, I don't know if I'll even be able to afford a house like this. But yeah, as far as Westlake goes, it's also something I forgot to mention is that Bay Village is actually the third least diverse municipality in Ohio. In other words, it is the third whitest place. About 99% of Bay Village's population, even to this day, is white. Westlake's, it's like 93%, but it's still pretty high. And yeah, so Westlake and Bay Village, they really are kind of like a team, the two of them, Westlake and Bay Village. And if they were in Cuyahoga County, I would talk about them. But Avon Lake, kind of an extension of Bay Village, if you ask me. I mean, it even looks like they're the same, but Avon Lake is in Lorain County. And then there's Avon minus Lake, which is kind of an extension of Westlake, except it still has farms all over the place. Because Avon is still today pretty rural, all things considered. But yeah, on that note, we just covered the 8 suburbs. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to get more videos out like this soon. And please let me know what you thought of this in the comments. Yes, this is a re-upload because the last video I made about this subject, I just didn't think it was very good. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for 1,000 subscribers. And I will see you next time.